we all look at resilience as we have to do big things, but actually it's in the small moments that you actually build that resilience and you create that change, because it's the small things that actually build up to the big things. And we quite often, when we're so busy in life and we're trying to get everything done, we miss the tiny little moments, and it's those that actually really do matter.
Another recurring theme this year on Leading with Integrity has been health in the workplace. Today, we're taking another look at that from a slightly different perspective. We're talking nutritional and gut health, among other things. My guest to help me do that is Amanda Whitehead. She's an expert on all things nutrition and gut health. She works particularly with women in their 40s and 50s, among other things, helping them with the symptoms of burnout. Her role in that is to help them thrive and reconnect with their true self through some of the methods that we'll hear about today. So we will be talking about wellness and health generally, as well as mental health too. We'll hear about the physical, the gut, the nutritional health. We'll talk about stress management, personal transformations, self-care, even hydration comes up too, and how all of these things combine into the whole that makes a healthy person, whether that is in the workplace or elsewhere. We'll also talk about the leadership implications of this, what we can do as leaders, as managers, to help or support people who are going through any kind of health journey, and to create the environment where people feel comfortable to, for example, look after themselves better, not work ridiculous hours, do things to prevent burnout, set their own boundaries, and so on and so on. So there's some recurring themes here, but also some new perspectives and some interesting stuff. And Amanda was very kind not to shame me about my caffeine habit as well. So do listen in for the whole story there.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Amanda, welcome to Leading with Integrity. It's lovely to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me, David. It's lovely
Of
to be
course.
here.
Yeah, of course. So to kick us off, over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, what you do, why you do it, etc.
Okay, so my background has always been in some sort of wellness. So I went to college straight from leaving school and studied beauty therapy. So was always involved in massage, things like that. And because of my health when I was sort of 15 onwards, I had a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome. And for me, medication didn't help. It actually made the spasms worse. So right from a young age, I was always trying to find foods that wouldn't actually make the cramps worse. So I obviously didn't realize it back then, but I was still having that journey early with my gut health. And so as I got older, I got more passionate, because when I was in the treatment room, even doing massages and facials and things, I'd have clients coming in and they'd be struggling with things like anxiety, digestive issues like bloating and constipation and things. And the amount of people that used to say to me all the time, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It's like I've had therapy." And we'd laugh and say, "Well, you have, because, it's beauty and therapy." And then I got to a point where I just focused solely on massage, and I'd qualified in health and nutrition coaching. And so I brought that into my treatment room with my clients. And then in 2020, COVID hit, and my massage treatment room had to close more than it was allowed to open for a good, I can't even remember now. It feels like a blur at that time, but I think it was like a good year on and off. But I was still having clients kind of struggling, even more so because they didn't have that connection in person with people. And so I decided to dive in a little bit deeper and study the gut and whatnot even more. I'd already got a lot of that information myself, to be fair, but I did qualifications because of insurance and things when you're working with people, and decided to start doing the coaching online via Zoom, so people could still have that connection. I could still help people, but in the background, my youngest daughter was struggling with mental health issues, and she'd been in and out of psychiatric units since 2020. And so I was very passionate about what I was seeing and what I still see in, the increase in mental health struggles, but also that gap between Western medicine and functional medicine, and how quite often we still go to, if we give you this, it'll make you feel better. But actually, if you actually look at your lifestyle and the choices you're making, you can really support yourself, and you can actually blend the lifestyle and the Western medicine together, because sometimes it's needed, but there's a lot of the times that that's still not happening. And so I myself went into total burnout, and recognised that. I invested in myself and got a couple of coaches that helped me bring myself back up to where I am now. And it put a fire in my belly even more, because I now am seeing even more so what's possible when you support yourself in the right way. So in a nutshell, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. One of the things that I find really fascinating in this field is that link between like the mental and the physical. And I think most people in a job they don't enjoy have experienced it perhaps the other way around, where you kind of your stress, your mental anxiety, your burnout even has a physical impact. So it's also quite intriguing to hear it the other way as well. So when so even simple things like what you're eating or not eating causes those kind of mental health concerns, issues, challenges, I guess is the word, the stress level that can cause, the anxiety, all these other things. And I always kind of question about whether there is a cause and effect there, or whether it's more of a cyclical thing, or I don't know, but we've got an expert here to tell us. So, yeah.
So first off, what I would say is whether you are at burnout, and burnout looks different for everybody. Like what my burnout looks like will be totally different to what somebody else's burnout looks like. But from a stress point of view, yes, food does play a part, because you need the nutrients from the clean whole foods to actually nourish your gut. Your gut and your brain are connected, which is what you call your nervous system. But if you're stressed and you're in constant fight or flight, the challenge is you can eat as healthy as you like. You're not going to break down the foods, and you're not going to take the nutrients from them, because your body and your adrenal glands are kicking out too much of the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, because your body needs the energy to do what it thinks it needs to do, which is run or fight. And so the last thing that it's thinking about is digesting and breaking down your food. So it is a cycle, because there's that stress cycle where whatever it is that's the trigger for you. So for some people, like in this situation, you're saying a job they don't enjoy, but it's actually looking at what is it in that environment that they're not enjoying. What is that stress that's actually starting it? Because then if they are going into that fight or flight, or they have gone into that freeze side where you are pretty much in burnout, then there'll be habits or coping mechanisms that I tend to call them more, that they've actually learnt because it keeps them safe. Or in a work environment, you might hear them say that they're just staying comfortable. They're not necessarily purposely doing that. Unconsciously, their nervous system is going, oh my gosh, we're back in this environment. We don't like it. And so it's triggering a hormone from a place in your brain that's called your pineal gland, and that triggers your adrenal glands to send energy through your cortisol and your adrenaline. Now, if that is a quick, I'm stressed, I need to deal with this, okay, it's done, I can go back into relaxing and, I feel safe and everything's okay, that cycle will stop. But if you don't do that and the cortisol carries on dripping, you then are stuck in a stress cycle of fight or flight or freeze. And what happens there is inflammation starts in the body, And that will then start aches and pains, anxiety, different symptoms. Because again, we hear a lot of the time, oh, it's symptoms and you're ill. I see it as that is your body's way of communicating to you. Your body's telling you, I'm not okay. I need you to listen. I need you to do something that actually helps me and nurtures me and nourishes me. Because if not, you're just stuck in that cycle. And what you see a lot of the time is people in high stress roles that are stuck in that cycle. And it's a cycle that ideally we want to be ebbing and flowing in. So you need the stress, but you want the stress to be short-lived so that you can finish it and go back into the other side where it's called rest and digest, because then everything's settled and you are then digesting your food and things, because you don't tend to be rushing around and, you're sleeping properly and all those kind of things. So yes, food can have an impact, but what we need to be looking at is a person physically, mentally and emotionally, rather than just physically or mentally. Because again, if you've got somebody that can't speak, and I'm saying this from experience because it's something that I struggled with a lot, that doesn't feel they can use the voice, then they'll suppress their emotions because they can't speak how they're feeling. And that can also then trigger mental or physical symptoms and illnesses. So it's looking at that person holistically. And it starts with environment, really, and how they feel and how safe they are and how comfortable they are. And I guess from a leadership point of view, what support are they getting and who are they following? Are they walking their talk to give them permission to do the same?
Yeah, absolutely. So from my personal experience, the thing that I always used to find was the Sunday night headache, because it's Monday tomorrow and you've got to go back to that stressful place. But I think there's also like the day-to-day things. So speaking to the nutrition bit, like when you're stressed, maybe it's intellectual, I don't know, maybe it's just convenience, but you feel like you need to spend as much time at work as possible. Therefore, you don't invest the time in preparing or eating properly at lunchtime. You go to, I don't know, get a takeaway, you order something in, you get the cheap rubbish from the supermarket and you just shovel it down without leaving your desk. And it all kind of compounds, I think.
Absolutely.
And then obviously the leadership point of it, I think we'll talk a bit later perhaps about where this line is. Mm-hmm. But I do think there is a slight responsibility, at least, for when you're leading people, particularly when you're in a stressful environment, because quite often that won't be within anyone's control. It's just the state of business or the state of the economy or a ragey client or whatever it might be. But are you setting the right example in that situation as well? Like, are you practicing what you're preaching, kind of thing? Like, are you making sure you take proper breaks? Are you making sure you're taking time to eat properly? Are you getting rest? Or are you the one also at your desk, like till the dark hours in the night sort of thing and not looking after yourself? Because if so, then that's the example you're setting. So that becomes the culture of the team. That becomes what everyone's doing. And then before you know it, that example you've set has had a negative impact on the health of everyone who's working with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I'm a big advocate for walking my talk. If I'm working with my clients and I'm asking them, what if you did this or what if you did that? And they turn around to me and say, how did you find it? And I can't go back and say, oh, this is the experience I had, because I haven't done it. You can't expect other people to do the same. And in high stress roles, what I would always say is you have to be realistic. That stress is probably not going away. So it's finding micro moments where you can, step back and take a breath. That might be 3 breaths, checking in, like a quick scan from your head to your feet, and then going back into the room. And it only sounds like really, really tiny, but that will still signal some safety to your nervous system to say, I'm okay. You'll have grounded yourself back down again. You can go back in. It might be making sure that you've just got a cup or a bottle of water with you that you can just keep sipping, so you're keeping yourself hydrated. It might be that, like the food thing, it's really easy for us to just pick something up because that's the world we live in. But you're not supporting your blood sugars, you're not supporting your nervous system. So even if you do something like take an apple to work. If you can, chop it up and take a little tub of, say, if you haven't got an allergy to nuts, nut butter, have that as a dip. You've got the fibre and the different nutrients from the apple, but you've got the healthy fats and the protein from the nut butter, and you're helping stabilise those blood sugars, but actually stop the cravings as well. So sometimes it's just tiny little things. It might be that when you're at home at a weekend, you can take some time out, even if it's just 2 or 3 meals that you prep. Or this time of year is always easy, isn't it? Because we're recording this in May. So it's not been great, but usually the weather is a bit better. So it's easy to chuck salads together. And again, just make sure you've got a protein source in there, chicken or fish or adama beans or something. Winter, we think, oh my gosh, but soups and stews are amazing for supporting your digestion, and you don't have to break it down so much. But it's about taking that time when you're at home to maybe have those things batch cooked that you can take with you. So you're then not having that excuse of just wandering around the shop and picking something up because you're starving. So it is taking that time out. And even though, yes, the person leading needs to be setting by example, and that's more, I think, giving the team permission to look after themselves and do that kind of thing. But actually putting those things in place, it's your responsibility to do that, and take those things in. And the other thing I think as well, which I'm not in an organisation, I work for myself, for my clients, but my husband works for quite a big organisation. And the conversations that we've had numerous times is, why do you sit at your desk and eat your lunch? Like, just get up, take your lunch outside. Even if you sit on a bench, you're changing your environment, you're slowing yourself down, you've got time to take a breath, and you're entitled to that break. So you can then go back to that environment where it's a little bit more stressful. But again, you've taken a little bit of time back to remove yourself, and you can go with other people or you can go with on your own. But another part of that is that you're getting daylight, you're getting sunlight. There's quite a lot of offices that don't even have enough windows with daylight coming through. And daylight and sunlight is massive for helping your circadian rhythm. So helping with your sleep and those things. And then I think the last thing is rest, because if you're in a stressful situation, chances are you're not giving yourself downtime intentionally when you've finished that working day. And people think, well, does that mean sitting and doing nothing? No, it might mean going for a walk in nature. It might mean sitting and reading a book that you just really enjoy, that you can just lose yourself in. It might mean just sitting with a nice cup of tea that feels nice and warm, like especially in winter, that's just like comforting and soothing. There's lots of different ways you can rest and relax. But you might be at a point, if you are at burnout, where actually, you do need to stop and you do need to rest and relax and not do anything. And that's okay. But in the society we live in, it's also hard because there's so many things at our fingertips that we can just numb ourselves with and zone out. But that's not really supporting yourself. It's numbing those symptoms that you're already experiencing. So it is getting that balance that's right for each individual, really.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's the society we live in point is good as well. Like it's about the technology and the instant gratification culture, but it's also, I think, about like almost the social judgment of, oh, you're not doing anything this weekend. Oh, I mean, I've had that kind of conversation a few times because I love just doing nothing at a weekend.
Amazing.
And I'm not even that stressed, not anymore anyway. I don't know. So something else you said there that I'd like to pick up on as well is giving people permission to look after themselves. And I know exactly what you meant, but I also feel like that's a really horrible thing in the workplace, that people feel like they have to have the boss's permission to literally keep themselves alive and take care of themselves. And I don't know what that says about our work culture either. Probably not nice things.
I don't think it's just the work culture. I think it's just culture as we are. I mean, I talk to my clients a lot around like obsessive behaviors or addictions, and how, because I have a lot of people, and I used to be this person as well, I procrastinate, I sit and scroll on social media, and then I've lost 2 hours, and then I feel guilty, and and I'm stuck in this cycle. And that is just a coping strategy that I'd learned that kept me safe, because I didn't have to think about things, I didn't have to do stuff. But we're quite good, and I think this is probably both in the workplace and as just a society, of shoulding all over people and shoulding all over ourselves, and that's just shaming us, because we'll say things, and usually, it is around like alcohol or something like that. We'll use alcohol as an example, but you might be in a pub. I don't drink particularly anymore, but I used to be a real party girl. And what I learned on my journey was, as much as I enjoyed being out and about, I was trying to fit in. And the alcohol actually was a mask to hide the things that I was going through, or hiding who I felt I was, but I couldn't be, to fit in with the group that I was with. And as I started on my journey and I started growing and I started not really drinking a massive amount, I'd get people that, were friends, and they'd say, "Are you not drinking? Wow, how boring are you? Come on, just have one, you should have one. We like party, Amanda." And sometimes I found myself having drinks just, again, to fit in. But I also felt guilty because was I boring? And there was that pressure where, through kind of learning to listen to myself and actually stand my ground, if you like, I've learned that, I don't particularly enjoy alcohol massively. It definitely doesn't agree with me. And so I feel okay, but I don't get that very often anymore. But on the flip side of that, I have seen people where if they have a drink, they have too much, then they're telling them, "Oh, you've pushed it too far." So there's a lot of mixed messages. And I think that's probably, and I'm just thinking of clients that I've worked with in the past, in the workplace, but also very much as a society. It's kind of how we've got to be.
Yeah, the peer pressure is real. Yeah. And I mean, so you mentioned guilt. I mean, that's something I feel a bit guilty about, because in my 20s, I probably was that person who was judging people who weren't drinking, whilst I was putting probably my entire life's allocation of mileage on my liver in one go, probably in that 10-year period. But I think, no, that kind of peer pressure thing. And I think there's a link as well to confidence. I think as we grow older, we naturally get a bit more confident with things. And so we're more able to say no to stuff like that and not really care what others think. At least I have been. That's been a very personal experience, perhaps. Maybe that's not something everyone experiences, but I don't know. I think there's a link there.
Yeah, I think it depends. I think if we're all on a journey regardless. But if you're on a journey of really starting to get to know who you are and really, lean in, I think you definitely build more confidence because you understand.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people can look confident, but actually deep down, they're not. So again, they can be putting that mask on. But I think it depends. I think it also depends on what you've gone through in your life and your journey as well. And again, the environment and the people that you have that surround you that, cheerlead you, if you like, or pull you down.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think we're back to individual context, aren't we? And I think that there's a common theme there with leadership too. And I think the importance of understanding what that is for the people you're leading is really important. Interesting. Well, that was some good tangents we went off on there, but I'm going to come back to one of the planned questions, because I think now is the right time to ask you this one, because we've gone around quite a few things there that are maybe not as happy as they could be. So this question is, what's the best thing about what you do?
The best thing about what I do is seeing my clients transform and just have little glimmers and little light bulb moments and start realizing that actually what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and allowing themselves to be led by their inner wisdom and come and tell me things like, I stood up for myself, or I haven't been bloated in a week, or I've slept for 8 hours, like for a whole week. I've got more energy, and you can see that they're starting to really flourish and get that confidence and trust in themselves and learn to really listen and reconnect with who they are is just, it fills my heart with joy. I love it. Because it's all about, for me, it's about breaking generational cycles and giving people the power back to be in control. And that's not resisting, that's just feeling confident to say, no, I don't agree with that, or that's not actually right for me, and be able to live life on their terms.
And what would you say has been like the biggest transformation you've seen? Without naming names or giving away anything, but...
So I think the biggest transformation I have seen is someone I worked with was in quite a stressful role, and she was struggling with gut issues, Crohn's and colitis. And whilst we were working together, she was learning the foods that served her, but she was also learning that in her head, she shouldn't have like fried foods and things. But she started learning what could be healthier options. So she could have chicken, but she would just cook it in coconut oil or avocado oil rather than vegetable fat. But she also shared that the whole time that she was working with me, she didn't have any flare-ups at all. And then the other transformation was working with someone who, when they came to me, they'd got diabetes type 2, they were near burnout, and we reversed the diabetes type 2 with lifestyle, and energies and whatnot obviously started coming back. So again, they learnt what was sustainable for them and what served them. And that wasn't necessarily just the food, it was the understanding what actually stressed them out. So a lot of people think that it's just other people might stress them out, or like you said in the beginning, the foods, but actually quite often the things that stress you out the most is not moving enough, not being hydrated enough. And so then you can't rest properly because your body hasn't had what it needs to be able to repair and regenerate when you're sleeping. So it was really like the little tiny things that they learned that they could bring into their day and still do what they loved doing and support their health in a way that, they felt better and they were back in control because they weren't necessarily having to rely on medications solely, because they'd got other ways to support themselves.
Two pretty good references there then. I guess it goes back to what you're saying earlier. Sometimes it is like the small changes, isn't it? And I mean that's a lesson just for life generally, I reckon. Like, it obviously applies to this, definitely applies to the workplace and managing our own stress and leadership and all sorts of things. Learning probably as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I was only saying last week that we all look at resilience as we have to do big things, but actually it's in the small moments that you actually build that resilience and you create that change, because it's the small things that actually build up to the big things. And we quite often, when we're so busy in life and we're trying to get everything done, we miss the tiny little moments, and it's those that actually really do matter.
100%. So we may have already talked about the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case.
Okay.
What do you think are the main things that we're all overlooking in our daily lives when it comes to stuff like what we've been talking about? So diet, health, I don't like the word balance, but work-life harmony, all of these sort of things.
So I think balance, we overlook that it's not about 50-50. It's about what balance looks like for you as an individual. And none of us are perfect. We're human. So even when we're doing things, sometimes, even if you're doing, supporting yourself the best you can 70% of the time, and 30% of the time you're not quite getting it right, like that might be balance for you, and that's okay. For somebody else, it might be 8 to 20. I think from a diet point of view, I really don't like that word because I think it just, people will say I'm on a diet, or I think it can be negative sometimes. But from actually a food and drink point of view, I think it's people think you need to spend lots of time prepping in the kitchen, and there's lots of ways that you can do things like in 20 minutes. But I also think that we as a society really don't understand the importance of hydration. We talk about it, but actually water is one of the most important nutrients our bodies needs. And we need plain water because we need to be flushing toxins, but we also need electrolytes. So we've got the minerals to actually help support the liver and the kidneys in doing what they need. So as an example for your listeners, starting your day with some warm water and lemon, if you're allowed citrus fruits, I will say, because some medications they're contraindicated, meaning that you can't have them. But anybody that can't have them will know. But just putting that in your water first thing in the morning, it helps to hydrate, but it's also an amazing food for cleansing your liver. So when your liver's been working really hard at night, and it's been trying to remove those toxins alongside your kidneys, that the lemon will help to hydrate, the water will flush the system. So your liver will absolutely love you for that. And the other thing that you can do for electrolytes is a glass of water and just one shake of either Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. Not so you can taste it, but you've got the sodium in there. So that's quite good. And if you're someone that's, I'm not sure, foods like celery, cucumber, bananas, melons, they're very hydrating. Bananas are full of potassium. So again, you've got another mineral in there. And then your leafy greens and things are always absolutely stacked with magnesium and things. So I think we overlook the importance of hydration and keeping ourselves hydrated, and how that would help, because it gives you more energy, it helps with your focus, it can give clarity, all of which in a high stress role is absolutely needed. But it'll also help you sleep and rest, because if your body's, it's a little bit like if you've got a car and you're not putting oil in it, water or fuel, it's not going to go, is it? So we have to kind of look at our bodies in exactly the same way. You need to be giving it what it needs to actually perform at its best. And then what was the other one? Diet, work-life balance, and what was the other one that you said we were overlooking?
Well, just general health. So I think you probably answered that anyway.
Yeah. So I think, and I think sometimes the importance of connection, and that's not necessarily with other people, that's actually connecting with yourself. So taking some time out to just sit and just be and just check in with how you're actually feeling. Are you aware of the thoughts that keep coming up all the time, and just seeing what your inner self is kind of asking for.
Okay, like it. I mean, so the water one is when you think about it, I don't know the exact numbers because I'm definitely not a biologist or an expert on human health, but the logical, obvious answer is how long can you survive without food versus how long can you survive without water, right? I mean, it's quite a big difference, like more than people would expect, I think. And I think that's a clue, isn't it? That water's perhaps quite an important thing.
Yeah. Well, I think off the top of my head, I'm sure our bodies are made up of, I don't know if it's 70% or 80% water.
Yeah, it's a big percentage, isn't it?
It's a big percentage that our bodies are actually made up of anyway. And when you think you need to be supporting those eliminating organs because you want your lymphatic system to work properly, so you're getting rid of the toxins, because if you don't and you then do get really badly dehydrated, those toxins are going to recirculate in your body, and that is going to create headaches, brain fog, lack of concentration, bloating, skin issues, like all sorts of things. So if you're depleting in water, because when you like go for bowel movements, for instance, your intestines need the water to be able to carry the fibre and, and everything through. So it's still got to use it regardless of whether you're replenishing it. So actually, I would say that if you're someone that's at the minute thinking, I don't know where to start, and you're not drinking enough, maybe that is the first place to actually start making a difference.
Yeah, and it's quite an easy place to start as well, isn't it? I mean, everyone has water, I hope. I mean, they should.
I would say it's a simple way to start. It's not easy.
True,
because it's
yeah.
a habit
No,
that
you're right.
you've got to try and introduce. And everything that we're talking about today is simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy, because you've got to change. And again, as humans, we resist change because we don't know what it's going to be like. It's the unknown. So
Yeah, no, you're right. I did misspeak. Although I have to say, it is like literally physically easier to just drink a glass of water than it is, say, to spend time preparing a healthier meal. So I think it's both,
yeah.
but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it is. But then you will gain, hopefully, the energy to be able to do that. And if you're moving regular, depending on what way you're moving, I'm not saying go and beast yourself in the gym, but if you are moving more, your body will ask for more nutrients because you'll be using more energy, so it needs replenished. So that might then start helping you to start changing little things of, the foods that you're choosing.
Yeah. So to go back to your car analogy from earlier, the food is the fuel and the water is the oil, right? The lubrication. Yeah.
And I guess from your point, when you were saying at the beginning of this podcast of how it impacts, if you put petrol in a diesel car, it doesn't work very well. But you put the right fuel in to give it the energy to actually move, and it'll perform really well for you. And you can look at food in that sort of way. So if you're putting food in your body that's not going to be, it's not got many nutrients and things in it, you can't really expect, your mental load to be great, your physical to be working well. But if you're actually nourishing yourself with the right foods that are going to actually, nourish your mental health or your brain, and they are going to actually look after your muscles and your ligaments and your joints so you can move freely, then your body's going to work better for you.
Yeah. Now, speaking as something of a coffee snob and thinking I probably already know the answer to this question, but what are your views on caffeine?
There's lots of different opinions out there. And I think, my opinion is it depends how you are with it as an individual. I always think quality. So it depends on the quality of it, like how it's formulated, where it's resourced and all those kind of things is important. Me personally, I'm quite sensitive to caffeine. So I don't very often drink coffee and things like that. I'll have herbal teas, but again, they tend to be caffeine free. And the only caffeine I would say that I have is a supplement that's called a Fistic, and it's got a little bit of caffeine in from green tea. And I tend to be okay with that. So if you're someone that actually caffeine is you're okay with it, it's fine. What I would say is just be aware that when you have caffeine, it can actually stay in your system for up to 12 hours after consumption. And again, we don't like this word, but have it in balance, like in moderation. I was taught when I worked for a big skincare house, for every cup of coffee that you have, you should be drinking, I think it was 3 or 4 glasses of water to counteract the toxins that's going through your body.
Wow. Well, that's
because it does dehydrate your system. So it is getting that balance of making sure again that you're actually flushing those toxins.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it depends, like I see people that have the are they called espressos, the tiny shots. That's quite a lot of caffeine in one tiny little thing.
As you said at the beginning of this answer, like not all coffee is created equally as well. I think like the quality has a big impact for sure.
Yeah. It's knowing what you're having. And like I say, there's lots of different opinions out there. I know there's like people that swear on having bulletproof coffee in the morning and things like that. But then I also know a guy that I follow on Instagram, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he is a psychiatrist, and he always says, absolutely no, it's really not good for your brain. He scans brains, he's an expert in brains, so, you know, but I do think we do need to have that balance of enjoying life as well. So I do think the quality is really, really important, but I also think that you are an expert on yourself. You know what's right and what's not good for you. So I guess if it's making you feel good and you feel like it is serving you, great. If you're doing it just because you're trying to get through the day, then maybe there's something else you can look at doing instead.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And again, in parallel to the conversation about alcohol as well, like if it's a coping mechanism or it's a crutch that you're leaning on, then it's probably not a good idea. But if it's something that you get a bit of enjoyment out of and you're not taking it to excess, then like you say, you know yourself and your body, so why not? I mean, as long as you're not. Yeah, I don't know. So it is interesting with coffee for me anyway. Like I don't think I would have got through uni without it.
That you were using it for the wrong reasons.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And again, like the stressful jobs where you're working like the 10-hour days or whatever, it's at that point, again, it was a crutch. But I have found like I don't drink instant coffee anymore because that I get a lot of negative effects from that, like the headaches and other issues. But if I have like proper fresh from like the beans and I grind it myself, it all sounds very snobbish and pretentious, but that's fine. It has no negative impact on me at all. Like, I enjoy it. I enjoy the process of it. I don't go nuts with it anymore. I mean, I used to be like a 6 cups a day person. Now I'm 1, maybe 2, and I stop at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Especially as I've got a bit older. I don't know. It's something you get enjoyment out of. But then I also think at the same time, coffee's a bit like beer where nobody actually really likes the taste. It's an acquired taste. And then once you've got it, you don't really remember what it was like before you tasted it. And you forget that your first time you had it, you were like, oh, this is horrible. And you just kind of...
yeah. One thing that I am going to like kind of circle back though, if it's okay.
Please do.
Is,
yeah.
You said about the coffee, it's a bit snobby-ish. Why is it? Like, why do you feel that you're being a snob? And why is that a bad thing? Like, you are just choosing quality and you are actually giving your body the best that you're aware of. Why is that such a bad thing?
You're absolutely right. And that is a peer pressure created bias in my own brain. So thank you for calling that out. Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's really important because I think sometimes when we're saying things out loud, it's like we're telling ourselves we're still wrong. And actually, even with that coffee, you're leading by example of actually choosing what's better, a better choice, a healthier choice for you, rather than just going, like you said, and getting a jar of instant coffee that doesn't serve you because you know the symptoms. But I also remember, because I've been called a snob lots of times, I'm very, like my husband will say that I'm low maintenance, and then he'll go, actually, but are you? Because it's kind of like, water needs to be filtered. I'm not drinking tap water. I'm not having any fluoride in my toothpaste, so I have to buy that separate. My food I'm very choosy with, you know, and he's like, so are you actually low maintenance? Are any of us meant to be low maintenance when it comes to our health and well-being? But my mum once had a friend, and he always used to say, there's nothing wrong with the word snob because it means you're bettering yourself.
I'm not sure about that. I think it's, yeah, I mean, we can get into like meaning of words and language now, can't we? But I mean, my understanding of the word snob is that there is a negative connotation because it has that sort of arrogance within it. But I prefer the way you talk about it, where it's about you choosing the best for yourself.
Yeah.
You're choosing quality, because that is important.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have to do that in a way that lords it over other people, which is where
No.
maybe we're crossing the line into snobbishness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think also the reason I kind of brought that in was because you're choosing better for yourself. So why would that be snobbish?
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. Absolutely. And actually, now that I think about it, it became a bit of I'm not going to say a coping mechanism, but it was like a way of managing stress for me back when I had that stressful job, because doing the proper fresh coffee is a bit more involved. So it forces me to spend 10 minutes away from my desk in the kitchen, doing that whole process and focusing on that and forgetting about what was stressing me out for 5 or 10 minutes. And actually that I found that quite helpful at the time.
But you also there have just explained another micro moment that you found to take out of your day to be able to do that. And like, we can talk about it like crutch or however, but quite often people will think that they're having a relaxing moment because they've made themselves a quick cup of coffee or they're having a glass of wine or whatever. But like you say, sometimes actually that's actually numbing, where if you're present in that moment, you're enjoying, like it might be the sound of the beans crushing or like whatever that is. And then you get the smell and, different senses are actually waking up. You're in a moment where you're aware and you're present of what's going on. And that is where the micro moments matter.
Absolutely. So with an eye on the time, because we've gone down some lovely tangents and talked about things that I didn't expect to talk about, but it's been very enjoyable. I could happily talk about coffee any day of the week, but as my siblings will attest, much to their dismay. So if there was only one myth that you were allowed to correct about nutrition and gut health, what would it be?
It's not all about food.
Okay. Succinct, to the point. I like it. Yeah.
Well, you're talking about gut health. Nutrition is a foundation, just like hydration is, but also movement is, connection is, sunlight is, it all creates that. I'm going to use that word again that we don't like, but it all creates that balance in helping stabilizing blood sugars and reducing stress and the load from your brain gut connection. So nutrition absolutely has a place, but it ain't all about that.
Okay, fair enough. And to clarify, I'm perfectly happy with the word balance, just not when it follows the word work-life.
I just think balance is really difficult sometimes because some people see it as a 50-50 and balance always that. It's, it's getting what's right for the individual. So I don't particularly like it.
No, I agree for the exact same reason in the workplace context, because the word balance implies equal measures of both, and I don't think that's the way humans are meant to operate, to be honest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so the all-important question then for people in the audience, for leaders, for managers who are listening, what can they be doing and what should they be doing to support better health at work for themselves, but as well for the people that they're leading?
So first off, I wouldn't ever say that they should be doing anything, because I think it puts pressure on and it shames them into doing something that they might not want to do. So for me, what they can be doing is looking at, are they hydrating themselves? Are they nourishing themselves right? What does their work life look like? What are their expectations of themselves, but also of others? So what is the message that they're giving out? Are they on their laptops even out of work? Because it's like, is that actually leaking into their family time or their private time? And because they're doing it, is their team doing it as well? And is that serving them as a team? And if they can lead from the front by finding those micro moments and even maybe sometimes doing it as a team. So maybe, I don't know, 11 o'clock might be a little break. they get together, they do 2 or 3 breaths, they check in, or they have that time, but they have to go outside, they have to change their environment. So they're just starting to change those little things. That will not only help improve their own health and well-being, it'll improve the relationships within the team. It'll improve everyone's relationship with themselves. And it'll probably also mean that if they've got sickness and things within the team, those days will possibly be less, because they're allowing that time for people to actually have those micro moments and actually nurture and nourish themselves. And maybe it could be, I don't even know if this would be a thing, because like I say, I haven't worked as an employer for an employee, for a long time. But even just having things like water fountains, or, you know, you can get like the big water bottles where people can go and actually get water, so it's readily available if someone's like forgotten the bottle. Instead of having like biscuits in the kitchen, could they have maybe some fruit, or, you know, different things like that? If they tend to have like a canteen, can it be more salads, soups, stews, you know, things that's more nourishing, but people can just go and get, and try and do like little things like that. But they need to be doing it as well, because they're leading from the front. So they're kind of, I know it puts a lot of responsibility on their shoulders to begin with, but they're the ones that's giving permission to the people that they're leading to be able to do the same. And if you've got some people that are resistant in that, when they start seeing the changes in you, they'll be much more open to actually trying it themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's leading by example, isn't it? As we said, I think there's so your point about the likely, I mean, not guaranteed because nothing ever is, but the likely impact it will have on reducing sick days and things like that. I mean, that's a real tangible reason why even like the most cold-hearted business manager, leader person is going to see value in why you should do this. And the water cooler one is funny as well, because you hear that a lot in the context of usually bosses complaining about the loss of culture after COVID in the workplace and how everyone needs to come back to the office. I think that's a rubbish argument, but the health one is a great reason to have the water cooler in your office.
No, absolutely.
So then again, it's keeping everyone happy, isn't it? Even if it is for different reasons.
It is. And the thing is, like, I know like sometimes it is about the people that's in the office, but the ripple effect that will have on people's families, relationships with themselves and with others is massive. And if you've got someone that's coming into work that feels valued, that feels appreciated, that has things around them that actually helps them on their journey, you're going to get, you know, they're going to give you so much more. Because if we all feel seen and heard and validated, we'll do anything for anyone, won't we? Because that's, as human beings, that's what we want. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be validated. But to have the energy to be able to go in and do all those things, we have to look after ourselves. So
yeah,
it's,
no, exactly. And I think it's, I mean, there's a few studies out there now around productivity. They've been around for a few years now. And the links to like well-being and happiness in the workplace and more generally. People who are happier at work generally are the ones who are least stressed, not always. And again, obviously there's different kinds of stress, but there's that sort of unnecessary stress that bosses tend to create through, I don't know, inaction or because they think it's better somehow. So less stressed people are happier people. Happier people tend to be more productive, I guess is what I'm saying. But I also think, I mean, I've hinted already at like the whole return to work, return to office nonsense. And in my mind, it is nonsense. But even in a remote working context, I think this stuff is actually more important because when people are working in their own homes, they're less likely to take the breaks they should because they probably feel a little bit guilty they're working from home. Even if they don't feel guilty, they're still like, well, this is my home. I'm comfortable wherever. It doesn't matter. I'll just stay at wherever this is, my desk, my sofa, my bed where I'm working. No judgment on any of that. But they're more likely to work through things and have lunch while still working and not take the right breaks and maybe not focus on the right things as much. And more likely as well, because even if they have a leader who is doing all the right things to support their health, they still can't necessarily see if it's being followed through. So I think making that example even more visible and public within a remote work context is actually quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'd also add to that is I get that not everybody has partners or, wives, husbands, children, but there's a lot of people that work from home that do. And what I would say to those people is just take responsibility yourself, because yes, from a work point of view, it's going to impact massively, but you've got eyes that's watching and ears that are listening. And that's not necessarily just little ones. Little ones will actually watch you more. And if you are working somewhere where there are children, they'll call you out if you're not doing what you said you'd do. So they're great. But what you'll find is that if you start doing this, then your spouse or your partner or whoever will start following suit as well. So you're kind of giving permission within the home area as well. And I guess from a point of view of working from home, I know it's not always doable, but it is good if you can have a spot that's for work that you can pack away and come away from work, because then your brain knows the difference. This is my workspace. This is where I'm good to relax and whatnot. But absolutely, even putting those things in place, when you're working from home on these days, you still do the micro moments. You still go away from your desk to have your lunch. You still make sure that you are keeping yourself hydrated and things. So the message from the leader is the same wherever people are.
I think so. So back to the point of what can and what should and where that line of responsibility. There's a common theme in leadership, I think, where the responsibility of the leader is to create the environment where success can happen. So in this context, the success is healthier people. But that doesn't necessarily take away the personal responsibility either. So each of those individuals also has to take on a bit of the responsibility for doing these things. And I think that's a tough dynamic for the modern manager to balance. Let's put it that way.
But then I think, again, and we could get into communication because it's words, but you're either a manager or you're a leader.
True.
So if you're telling people what to do, that's fine, but you're doing it yourself. I have a thing with this a lot, especially in corporate things, because you might be a manager in your role, but you can still be a leader in your health.
Yep.
But being brutally honest, it is each individual's responsibility. It's your body. It's up to you to look after it. And the one thing that I would say is, don't shame yourself into shoulding that you should. Actually ask yourself, do I want to make these changes? Do I want to feel better? How do I want to feel? Because then you will have more people that will probably do it because they want to, and they know what the outcome is going to be. They know how they want to feel, but then they've got to step forward and do those things. And even though we're talking about health and it sounds easy, and a lot of the things are very simple, it is still sometimes uncomfortable because you'll still have people that don't want to. And that's okay, because it's their body and it's their life, But everything starts with you, your relationship starts with you, the relationships that you have, everything starts with you. So yes, we're talking about leadership, but actually we can all be leaders and come together. It's not about one person just doing it. It's in this, what we're talking about now, it is very individual. And it's because what you'll find is as well, a lot of people, there'll be certain things that some people do that won't suit others. So it's finding what actually supports you in the right way as well. And nutrition, it's different foods, but hydration is pretty similar for everybody. But there's practices might be a little bit different as well. And so in the workplace, that could put people off because they're not doing the same as everybody else. And it's getting comfortable, or not getting comfortable, but being okay with not being the same as everybody else.
No, I get where you're coming from. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying. So when I say that the leader's responsibility is creating an environment where those other things can happen, what I'm thinking is things like, are they leading by example, looking after themselves? Are they doing some of the things we've been talking about today? Are they, like, if they're the employer as well, if they're the business owner, are they investing in things like giving people access to a nutrition coach or something like that?
Yeah.
Or are they giving extra healthcare benefits on top of what they're legally minimum required to do? And that sort of thing. Are they having, like, arranging events where people can go out and participate in sports or whatever, as a company? You know, there's things where they can create opportunities for people to take up, and then it's down to the individual whether that fits them, whether they want to do it, you know, all of those things that you've just been saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then my position on leader versus manager, by the way, is if you want to be a good one of either of those, you have to be good at both.
Very true.
Because they are different skill sets, but they're also, I think, in a modern business, both essential.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, I'm nearly out of time, and we've barely covered any questions, but I think it has been a really useful conversation. I think we've meshed our two areas of expertise together quite nicely today. Hopefully the audience agrees. But no, it has been really good, and I've learned a few things as well, so thank you for sharing all of your expertise today.
You're very welcome.
I do have one last question, though, that you have to answer, because everyone has to answer this one.
Oh, okay.
So it's leadership heroes.
Leadership heroes.
It's my favourite one. That's why everyone has to answer it. And the question is, if you had to pick one person, but it could be anyone you could think of, so it could be alive or dead, past or present, real or fictitious, but someone who, in your opinion, would perfectly embody leadership, who would that be for you and why?
The first person that comes to mind is a coach that I worked with back in 23, I think. I was totally burnt out, and she could already see the person I could become. And what was so inspiring about her, and the reason I feel that she really does embody leadership, is because she'd walked the path before me, and she carries on doing so. Like, I'm still in touch with her. I'm not working with her at the moment, but she has the same outlook as I do. Like, she has a coach that works with her. I I'm not always working with coaches, but I do work with coaches. But she really walks her talk, and she has the empathy when you're going through stuff. So she won't fluff things up, but she will hold that space whilst you're going through it. And if you need that belief breathing into you, she'll breathe it in. But she'll also be realistic of, you've got to sit through that. You've got to feel the feels, and you've got to do the work, because nothing changes. And so I see her even now taking action in areas that probably don't feel very comfortable and great to her, but she will do it because as she works with clients, she's a walking example.
What a great example. Again, like, two common themes coming out there. One, a particularly big one, I think, that I hear quite frequently, either in this question or when I ask people like their best experiences of leaders, is that kind of theme of they believed in me before I believed in myself, or they saw something in me that I hadn't seen yet. And I think that I'm kind of starting to love this. I think this is one of the big true tests of, like, great leadership, is people who are able to do that for others.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's really easy to think of, like, famous people, or because there's lots of people out there that absolutely do. But I think for me, if it's a true leader that embodies, they've probably needed to lead me for me to be able to say that they absolutely do.
That is an entirely reasonable perspective, and I probably agree with it if I'm being 100% honest. However, it's great fun to talk about the fictitious characters and the famous people
Oh, yeah,
as well.
no, absolutely. And there's plenty out there that I just think are, what they've actually achieved through not having the degrees or, finishing school, and yet they've still gone on to be so successful, which proves that anything is possible, and they are great leaders. But Lucy just came to mind when you said that, so that's my
fair
job.
enough. Yeah, fair enough. No, there are always better answers when it's someone you actually have encountered, I think. Because I think the problem with famous people is you never really know the full truth of what they're actually like. And yeah, I mean, as one of my earliest guests 200 something episodes ago said, when he refused to choose a fictitious one, he said they don't inhabit the real world, so what's the point? Anyone can be a perfect leader in fiction.
Well, I guess he's got a point.
Yeah, he does have a point, annoyingly, but also I don't think that means there's no lessons there, though.
Yeah,
I guess I can see both sides.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the other person that comes to mind straight off for me is Mel Robbins.
Okay.
And that's more because she is very transparent and open, I feel, about what she's gone through to get to where she is. So I think when you've got people, and I think more and more people are coming, like doing podcasts and, writing books and becoming more influential, that are like that. I mean, I think Richard Branson is great. There are quite a few that you can kind of say. But for me, I've lived the experience with that coach, and I still see her, so passionate, walking a talk and seeing the transformations that she's still helping people achieve. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time today. Really have enjoyed this conversation. One final small thing I will ask you is if anyone in the audience would like to know more about you and the work that you do, if anything we've talked about today has sparked a moment for them and they'd like to get in touch, where can they go to learn more?
So I have a website. It's having some work done on it at the minute, but it's very nearly finished. And that is purposefullynourished.com. I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media, being on and off. But
Same.
Again, doing the work that I've done, I feel like I'm ready to get back into that. So at the minute, I have a Purposefully Nourished account on Instagram, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Amanda Whitehead. And like I say, just bear with me because I am starting to put more on there. But it's a work in progress.
No worries. It's going to be a couple of months probably before this episode comes out. So you've got a bit of time to get ahead of that curve.
Yeah. Everything will be going and done.
All good.
Yeah.
All good. So the listeners will see loads of stuff by the time this comes out, I'm sure. Yeah. No pressure though. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's fine. I'm ready.
That's great. And I will pop those links down in the show notes as well so everyone can find those easily. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Amanda, thank you for that. I learned plenty from that conversation. Really enjoyed it as well. And thank you so much for being so kind and generous with your time, with your conversation, with your insights, and with sharing your knowledge as well. I'm sure there's plenty in there for the listener, for the viewer to pick up on. And there's some very simple, actionable things that we can all start doing tomorrow. In fact, I've already started doing it because I'm recording this a couple of weeks after we had our conversation. So I've got a bit of a head start. Sorry, everyone. And yes, I have noticed a difference. Anyway, listener, viewer, thanks for being with us today. Hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Do hit the show notes for Amanda's links to learn more about her, the work she does. Perhaps reach out if anything we've talked about today sounds familiar or like a struggle that you are going through, something you've experienced, you'd like to have a conversation with her, you can get in touch. And I do encourage you to do so. And if you're here because you are one of those leader managers who is trying to create the right sort of environment for their people to excel, whether it's from that health perspective or from productivity, getting the job done, or all of the above and anything in between, then you're in the right place. You might be going through several struggles as a new leader, as a new manager, from imposter feelings to confidence, to just getting people to listen when you speak. And in those high stress, highly technical, specialist driven environments, it can be a real challenge. It can be isolating, because when you are promoted from doing the work to leading the people who do it, those expectations that are placed on your shoulders change almost in an instant, but certainly overnight. But what tends not to show up alongside that is the support. My leadership community, Integrity Leaders, is here to provide people like you, emerging technical leaders, with a community of your peers, with access to proven leadership frameworks and resources, with grounded mentorship to help you lead effectively from day one, no matter how deep the pool that you've been pushed into may be. So if that sounds like something you would like to explore, you'd like to get more out of the galaxy, the universe of leadership, and if you're a bit of a sci-fi fan as well, that will definitely help, then do visit the website to learn more, or come and find me on LinkedIn and drop me a message. The links to both of those options are down in the show notes, and the website is also on the screen if you're watching the video. It's leadingwithintegrity.co.uk. Well, that's all I've got time for this week. Thank you again so much for being with us, for listening this far if you're still here. Do join me again next week. I'll be chatting all things leadership, community building, customer support, AI, team dynamics, workplace culture. Basically, the recurring theme in that conversation is human connection. We'll have everything from the digital, the communication, the importance of third spaces and meaningful conversations, all the way through to storytelling and Barack Obama. So it's not an episode you want to miss. And my guest again for that is Talia Rosenblum, who is all about creating those third spaces. So if you don't know what that means, tune in next week to find out. I'll be back then. And in the meantime, have a think about what that one small change you might be able to make to your diet or your eating nutrition habits could be, and how transformational it possibly might be based on what we've heard from Amanda today. And of course, as always, be a leader, not a boss.